this is Chris, and welcome to this first video on using Next.js. This will be the first video in a series building out a full project from scratch. What we're going to do is use the United States National Park Service API to generate a national parks website. So we'll use a lot of cool features in Next, including their data fetching, page generation, templating out pages for individual parks, things like that. We'll also be using a CSS framework called Tailwind to help us with our styling. And then eventually we'll get ourselves set up with hosting our site as well. So with all that, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm on the Next.js getting started page. So pretty minimal requirements. You just need to make sure you've got Node installed. And then we're just going to follow this setup. So I'm going to use npx create next app. So I'll grab my terminal here in VS Code. I'm going to run npx create next app. And what is your project named? I'm going to call it My Next Park. All right, now that that's finished, it tells us to change directories into our project. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to open this up in a new VS Code. And there we go. You can see it scaffolded out for us. And then I'm going to run yarn dev just to see what we start off with. So if I refresh localhost 3000, welcome to Next. So we have our project up and running. Awesome. So let's take a look around real quick in our project. We've got our pages. App.js is just going to be rendering all of our components. We've got our index page, which is what you saw on localhost 3000. Let me close this down a little bit so it's easier to see the code. We've got our public folder, so this is where you'd store some of your like static assets or favicons, things like that. And then our styles, which we'll be tweaking to get set up with Tailwind. So let's go ahead and get rid of everything inside of this main aside from the H1, and then replace this with My Next Park. And then we can change the title from Create Next App to My Next Park. Hit save and then head back over. Cool. We've got it set up. So pretty quick, simple setup for getting a Next project up and running. Next thing we want to do is head over to the National Park Service website. So I'll drop a link to this in the notes below. If we head over to Get Started. For here, it's just a quick little form. If you click sign up, they'll email you an API that you'll be able to use to make calls. And then from there, you've got documentation and everything that tells you how to get set up and what sort of things can be accessed with that URL. So I've got mine already. And to make this a little more simple and straightforward, I like using Axios instead of the native fetch for React projects. So I'm going to yarn add Axios. And then let's grab that API key. So you should have yours, like I said, in your email. So I'm grabbing my API key. And I'm going to head back to my index page. And down at the bottom, I'm going to create a new function. So I'll write it out and then I'll explain what's happening afterward. So export const get static props equals async. And then I open up my function. I have my response. I'm going to set to an empty string just for now as a placeholder. I'm going to have my park as an empty string. And then I'm going to return an object with props set to park. All right, so what's going on here? In Next, we can fetch data at build time. So when our project gets built, it can hit an endpoint. It can use that information to then build out information on our website. So how does this work? We're going to make a call inside of this get static props, and it's going to be an async function. So we need to use Axios here. And so being inside of an async function, we are going to await Axios, and we need to import that at the top. This should be little a import Axios from Axios. And so we'll await Axios.get. And then I have my API key here. I'm just pasting that just as a placeholder, and I'm going to grab the endpoint that I need. So this is just a default one that I grabbed off of the National Park Service API documentation, just as kind of like a sample. So inside of this get, I'm going to open up backticks because I'm going to be using some JavaScript later on when we put this into an env file. So I'll paste in the first part of the endpoint, and then it's asking for an API key here at the end. So I'll cut this and paste it. And then just a quick note, if you're going to be putting this up on GitHub or Bitbucket or anything like that, I'm going to be putting this in an env file, and we're not going to commit that file. You want to make sure that you're taking care of your API keys, your secrets, your things like that, so that people don't spam you and or use your key a bunch without your permission. For now, it's not a big deal because we're not committing anything, but you wouldn't want to put this directly in your project like this, and I'll show you in just a minute how we can handle that with Next. So we've got that set up, and then our park is going to be equal to our response.data. And so now that park is going to grab our data. It's going to pass it in as props. So if we go to the top, we can actually pass those props in to this home component. And I'm just going to destructure out park. Park gets passed in as props. So this would be the same thing as if I just pass in props and then, const park equals props.park. It would be the same thing, but instead of typing all of that out, I can destructure park off of props. And now let's console log what we get from our park prop here. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to run yarn dev or npm run dev, either one is fine. And then switch back over. And it looks like it refreshed for me, but I'll do it one more time. And then open up the inspector, and in my console I see an object. So I've got a data array, and inside that array the first item and the only item is this huge data object about Acadia National Park in Maine in the United States. So pretty cool. Already within just a few minutes we were able to set up an API call to pull in data from a National Park Service website. So let's go ahead and see how we would pass some of this information into our project. So if we flip back over, so it's park, and then remember it's the 0th item because it's just an array of 1, and then we'll grab .data. Let's just console log that out one more time just to see what we're working with. So if I refresh, oop, can't read data. What did I do? Let's see. Let's console log park one more time. Oh, dot data at 0. Whoops, just had that backwards. Park dot data at 0, and this should give us a cleaner object to work with. So let's refresh, and there it is. So now we can just access that stuff here, and I'll show you why I did that here in just a second. But let's see what property we can grab. So let's grab full name, how about, just as an example. So if I flip back over to my terminal, or to my project, excuse me, I can grab this park.data at 0, since I know I'm just working with one park right now. I can say const Acadia is equal to park.data at 0. And now I don't have to type out park.data at 0 every time that I want to access a property. So my next park, and let's just do an H2 and do Acadia dot, I think it was full name. Let's check it out. Acadia National Park is now rendered on our website. Pretty cool. So another quick setup thing before we move forward in the project is using Tailwind. So Tailwind, if you go to their homepage, a utility for a CSS framework for rapidly building custom design. So in short, it's a really convenient way for adding these classes directly into your project and then being able to implement styles. And they're showing off a pretty cool example of, you know, how everything responds right away after you add these classes to your different components and your different tags and things like that. So let's, one more time, let's go ahead and shut down the dev server, and we're going to need a couple of packages in order to work with Next. So we'll do yarn add -d. So as a dev dependency, we are going to save post CSS -flexbugs -fixes, post CSS preset env, and then Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS is the main package. And then for a couple of these last two are optional, but if you run into some like VS Code linting issues, you might want to add these last two to avoid some squiggly red lines. So we'll do style lint and style lint -config -standard. And while that is all installing, one thing wanted to show is I recently installed, let's see if it shows up, Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. And so this, if you see me typing stuff out and it pops out these lists of suggestions, that's where this that's where that information is coming from, is from this extension. All right, so everything has installed. So we need a couple of other things. We're going to make a new file called tailwind.config.js. Just going to copy this over and hit save, and I'll have a link to this repo as well. So if you want to just grab that from there, that's fine. Then for our style, this is optional, the style lint.config.js. This will help us avoid some of those linting errors from that I mentioned before. So I'm going to paste this in and save it. We have a post CSS config.js file. And this is all just kind of boilerplate stuff to get Next and Tailwind up and running as they should. And then the last one that we'll need is inside of our styles, we're going to create an index.css. And we can actually delete the home module. Out of the box, just real quick note on that. Next supports CSS modules. So when you put this module suffix on it, so home.module or whatever, that takes care of scoping, which means that you're only going to apply styles to that certain component that you've got it tied in with. And it helps, if you've got a massive project, it helps avoid naming collisions and keeps things a little bit more organized. So that's just a quick note, but we're not going to use CSS modules here. So I'm going to delete it. And then inside of index CSS, we are going to do @tailwind components, or excuse me, base. And then if we have any custom base styles, we'll put them below there. Tailwind components. And then any components would go beneath there. And then @tailwind utilities would go here. And then I'll hit save. And now we should be able to use Tailwind. Let's check it out and see if see if I missed anything. So we have Tailwind starting. Let's see. Oh, styles. Okay, I got to delete that home.module in index. And actually, that reminds me. So we're going to get rid of this styles. I think we should be good on our CSS setup. Globals. Oh, this needs to, so in our _app.js, this is the last piece, is we need to import our index.css here, which is our Tailwind file. It's compiling. It was giving some errors before. Let's see. Styles is not defined. Let's see where that's at. Oh, that must be in our home page. So let's see. We'll get rid of this class. Get rid of this. So this is all just cleaning up. So this styles dot is the you're bringing in your CS module as an object and then accessing it that way. And I've got another video on CSS modules and Gatsby if you're interested in taking a look at what that looks like. And then one more. We can actually get rid of this footer entirely. All right, that should be good. Let's take a look now. So my next park, all right. So it's rendering, but we don't have those styles. We can close out the console here. Let me zoom in real quick. Shouldn't matter yet because we don't have a ton of stuff on the page, but before I forget. All right, so flipping back over to our project, let's see if Tailwind is working. So we'll do class name equals, and then let's see, font, text, no suggestions. All right. Well, let's see if it works anyway. So text blue 700. I think it's text instead of font, but I could double check. All right, cool. So it did work. So we've got our blue text. It might be hard to see, so let's do a more obvious color. Text red. So updating your styles is as simple as that with Tailwind. You just add a class to your tag, and it'll take care of styling for you. So if we flip back, let's do a little bit more In our main, actually, let's wrap this. We'll cut it, and we'll do a header, and then we'll do class name equals, we'll do flex to put a display flex on it, flex call to put the H1 and H2 stacked in a column. We'll do align, or excuse me, items, center, and justify center. And let's take a look at what that's looking like. It's all centered up. It's at the top. It's only taking up the width or the height of the content. So to show you a little bit more of what that would look like, let's do like H screen. And there you go. So it's taking up the full, that would be like the equivalent of 100 VH or viewport height. So in this project so far, what we've done is we've gotten an API key from the National Park Service. We have set up Tailwind, and of course we've gotten our next project started. So now that we've gotten the basic boilerplate and initial setup and things out of the way, moving forward, what we'll be doing is, I'll hop back to the project, we will be utilizing this pages directory to create a template for each of our national parks so that then we can dynamically build out each individual park's page. So we'll be able to use this get static props. We'll also be using something called get static paths to dynamically render all of the paths that we need for each of our parks pages. And it's only going to be a few extra files in order to take care of that. So I wanted to show the initial setup right away. If this is, you know, hey, I had some questions about getting a project set up. Now I'm up and running. Awesome. Then take this knowledge and build off of it, and that'll definitely be good practice for you. I'm still working on this project and wanted to get the first video up and out. So if you are looking for the extension and seeing this project get built into a full project that looks good on desktop and is responsive for mobile devices as well, then be sure to subscribe and like the video, and look out for notifications. Within the next few days, I'll have the next video up, and we will continue where we left off here. But until that time, hope you enjoyed a video, and until next time, have a good one.